Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Subtext Podcast Archives. These are the long-lost episodes of the Subtext that were originally produced between 2015 and 2017. In 2018, the Subtext moved to American Theater Magazine, and we've been producing the pod there monthly ever since. These time capsules are being shared here in their entirety, including plenty of outdated references and advertisements for events far in the past. If you enjoy them, please subscribe to the current podcast feed for the Subtext or stream new episodes on the website for American Theater Magazine. Thank you for listening.
How do you do that? This guy sat in a stool across from me and just started talking, not particularly caring or aware I wasn't interested in a conversation. My ears were stuffed with headphones and my eyes were fixated on my computer. I'm immediately annoyed. He wanted to know how I can write in a busy coffee shop. I looked at the time, I probably sighed out loud, and I decided I'd call it a day. This man's next words were, "This is my first day out since I entered treatment 9 months ago." His name is Craig. He's an alcoholic. He's been in 3 separate facilities over the past 9 months, but he has never ventured outside until today. I'm the first person he has spoken to, other than the Starbucks barista who took his order. He told me about growing up in Franklin, Massachusetts, about getting a DUI in North Carolina, about getting married in California, about hitting rock bottom in Pasadena. He seemed to blame his ex for a lot of his troubles. I wondered if that meant he still hadn't accepted responsibility. I wondered if accepting responsibility was important. I've never been in treatment. Craig is spending his first day out riding public transportation all the way to Redondo Beach. It will probably take all day just to get there, but Craig doesn't care. He's happy to be out and starting over again. He said he has a lot to think about and plans to make while sitting on this train, this bus, and that bus, and back again. He doesn't seem concerned, but he does seem uncertain. We spoke for 10 minutes before I decided I needed to get to my day job. I told him it was great talking to him, and that I'll be sitting here every morning, so he should say hello if he's ever in again. He smiled, shook my hand, and said, "Nice talking to you, Brian." Then we parted ways, and I'm left thinking about how I get so wrapped up in my own head all the time, how I have a stronger relationship to the words on the page than I do with the people around me. For reasons I'm still trying to figure out, I go out of my way to avoid interacting with people. I often don't feel like I know what to say. I lack patience. I get worried about not being what people need me to be. So I lock myself in a silo and I write plays. What I forget is the importance of being a participant in humanity and not just an observer. That guy Craig was a pretty complicated dude, and I learned a little more about the world by simply listening to him. And that's all he really needed. This happened 2 weeks ago, and I haven't seen him since, but I still think about him. I'm sure he'll show up somewhere in my work eventually. Maybe he'll show up at Starbucks again, too. Anyway, this one's for you, Craig. Welcome to the Subtext, the podcast where playwrights talk to playwrights about the things usually left unsaid. I'm Brian James Polak. Some of you know me as a playwright, some of you know me as the marketing manager for the theater at Boston Court in Pasadena, and some of you have no clue who I am, and that's okay. The Subtext is a monthly podcast hosted by At This Stage, LA's new performing arts magazine. The publication is a program of LA Stage Alliance and is made possible by funding from Bill Bordy. This month's guest is playwright Madhuri Shekar. I've known Madhuri for several years, but we've never had a conversation like this before. So, let's get to it. We're recording.
Oh my god! This is exciting.
I was very excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
And the thing that I was thinking about, that I didn't tell you, that I wanted to talk about first was one of my strongest memories of you because we've known each other for a few years now.
Dude, almost 2009.
Was it 2009?
2009.
So, shortly after we first met, you graduated from grad school at USC, and then you immediately, because you're an education junkie, apparently applied for another graduate degree, and you got accepted. And you called me on the phone. Do you remember this
I
conversation?
remember it so clearly because also I asked you when I could call you and you said, well, here are my windows. And I was like, okay, Brian's very busy. And then I called you and I was at my day job. And so I like walked out and I was talking to you and you were, yeah. And I was asking you for advice on whether I should go to grad school.
Right, you had just got accepted.
Yeah.
Right, and I was astounded that you were calling me. I was like, why is she, I can't believe she's calling me. And what you didn't know at the same time was that I was thinking about going to grad school
Yes.
at USC, and I was like, oh, she jumped like
I jumped the line.
she jumped me. She's already ahead of me. This is crazy. And so I guess there's a question in there somewhere, and the question is like, what were you thinking? Like what? Like you had at this moment in your life, you had just graduated. You just spent how many years in a grad program?
2 years. Yeah.
2 years in a grad program
Yeah.
studying.
Yeah. Marketing and communications.
So you're studying marketing and communications for a
Yeah.
couple of years. You just got a graduate degree.
Yeah.
And you had this moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the story, which people who know me know this story, but basically, in the second year of my communications degree, the second year was at USC, and then I took a MFA level playwriting class with Valina Hasu-Houston, who's the director of the USC MFA program, and loved it, and I was like, I loved theater my whole life, and this is what I wanted to do, and I kept like looking for little avenues to do it in, like just like whatever opportunities I could get. I was doing theater, and then I was like, okay, let me do this playwriting class in America. It at this at the let me try it out, and it was so great, and it was my favorite time of the week. That 3-hour class, and so that's why I kind of applied for the MFA program, but I applied thinking I will make up my mind about whether I want to do this if I get accepted. And I had a really great, and I had just started like 3 months prior to getting accepted, or 4 or 5 months maybe, my first full-time job, and it was a great job. It was in PR. It was in this very fancy PR agency in West Hollywood. And I was doing really well, and I really liked my bosses, and I knew that if I stuck with this, I could have like just the feeling of not having to worry about money was so new. And I wasn't making much money, but it was just like, oh my God, I have a job with benefits. It was amazing. And like to throw that all away and go and plunge into something that I knew would be extremely risky was kind of scary. I had also, I think around the time I had a long conversation with my dad, who was just talking to me about, well, really, really think about this, because this is 3 years if you do this MFA, and think about like the opportunity costs, not just like what you're missing out if you stop working full time, but like opportunity cost of going out of the workforce for 3 years, and what's your plan afterwards? What are you going to do? And I had no answers to any of those questions, so I was feeling kind of despondent. And also, I only had 2 weeks to make up my mind, which I think Valina and Oliver were kind of surprised that I asked for time to make up my mind, because I think most people who apply to MFA programs, like, they know what they want to do, and I wasn't sure. So that's why I called you. It's like, Brian, as a wise man, tell me what I should do.
I remember what I told you.
Yeah, I remember what you told me too. Yeah.
I said that I think most people should go live a life for a little while.
Yeah.
And not go right in to get their MFA.
Yeah.
To go live some life and start to collect some things to actually write about and learn about the world.
Yeah.
And I had a suspicion that you weren't like most people, and I said, I think you're different. I think maybe you should do it. That's what I remember saying.
Yeah.
I don't know if the
No,
actual
that's what I remember as well. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, which I kind of, I don't that's the thing. I don't necessarily think I would say that to somebody now. Well, it's like, I feel like you are a writer or you're not. You will if you are a writer, that means you're always open and you're always observing interesting things around you, and you by default have an interesting life because you're a writer and you find interesting stories in everything you do. So I think,
let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
So if you're a writer, by your definition, if you're a writer, you are living an open life
Mm-hmm.
and you're observing the world around you. Talk about that.
Um, so I think well, so that's the thing, right? So I applied for the MFA and I started the MFA when I was 23, I think. Yeah, when I was 23. And so of course I was very young, and of course um there's so much more I had to learn about the world. Um but at the same time, um I just kept fight. I just everything was just interesting to me anyway, and I knew that there were things I wanted to write about anyway, right now, and I feel like that's because that's the mark of good writing when you read something or you watch something and you can really feel. This sounds strange. I guess the authenticity behind it, the feeling that somebody was really able to observe and articulate a very specific experience that you can then relate to and identify, that makes you feel less alone in the world. I feel like that's the mark of great writing. Um, and I think that can happen. I think that can happen when you're young, and I think you definitely get much better at it when you're older. But I think like that's just a process that writers live throughout their whole lives. Um,
So what are the things
yeah.
that you're observing that are inspiring you, and are they different now than what they were when you first started writing?
I think so. It's so it's one of those things where like so the two plays that I've written that have gotten productions, and the things that were produced out of graduate school, in Love and Warcraft and A Nice Indian Boy, were both about very specific things that I was experiencing in my life, and if I were to write those plays again today, they would be very different plays. So I think that's kind of what happens. Like as you grow older, you gain a lot more perspective about certain things, or you change your mind about certain things, and then you don't write those things the same way again. I was trying to rewrite A Nice Indian Boy as a screenplay actually earlier this year, and it was incredibly hard. It was incredibly hard because I remember when I wrote the play, at the time I wrote the play, I was like, this is so personal to me. This is how I feel about marriage and family,
So talk
and
about what's this play about in a nutshell.
so A Nice Indian Boy is a story about this Indian American family in the Bay Area, and the protagonist is this man in his 30s, and Naveen falls in love with another man. He's gay. He has this wonderful boyfriend who becomes his fiance, and then it's about introducing him to his family and integrate. Like, he wants to have a lovely Hindu wedding to his boyfriend with the complete blessing and approval of his parents, which is kind of kind of a difficult thing to ask. So that's what the story is about, and it also follows the journey of his older sister, who had this picture perfect arranged marriage, and then comes home and announces that she's getting a divorce. And it also really follows the story of the parents who had an arranged marriage like 40 years ago or 50 years ago, not 40 years ago, and have made it work. So it's really like looking at three different perspectives of marriage, specifically within an Indian American context, and with the added layer of like what's it like to be gay and fall in love with somebody, and to make that work in a traditional system that doesn't quite yet have that space for you.
Are
Yeah.
you married?
I'm not married,
Have
Brian.
you ever been married?
Have I ever? No, I've
Then
not been
okay,
married.
then how is this a very personal play for you?
It's very personal because as I was writing this, my parents were setting me up with nice Indian men, and I knew I wanted to write a play about arranged marriage, and this was my entry point in, because I wanted to write a play about arranged marriage, and arranged marriage is just such an obvious topic for an Indian woman to write. God, I don't want to do that. But then I thought, oh my gosh, if it's Naveen and he's falling in love with somebody, but he wants it to be traditional, that's so interesting, and that's immediately funny to me. Like, that, just like, oh my gosh, the humor is right there. Um, and then the sister character is really based on me, because I was kind of projecting what happens if I married that one guy at the time that my parents were setting me up with. I was like, okay, what's going to happen if I actually marry him? What's going to happen 10 years down the line? And I was like, I'm going to be divorced and very unhappy. So that was kind of
Why
yeah.
were you so sure of this? Was it just the fact
I
that this was
wasn't
an
so
arranged
sh-
marriage
I
and you
wasn't
weren't
I wasn't
choosing?
that sure. I wasn't that sure. It was a real fear. It was a real fear that I had, and it was like, well, let's explore this fear. Let me actually take this. What's gonna happen? Like this sister is me 10 years down the line, and she she married this guy that her parents found for her, who seemed perfect, and it hasn't worked out. And so, like the very first draft of A Nice Indian Boy, at the end of the play, the sister reunites with her husband because it was almost me talking myself into being okay with the idea. And in the draft right now, she doesn't. It's I've come to the point where it's like, well, no, actually, people want different things, and generations change, and expectations change, and you have to find what works for you. Um, so all of those things, but also like if I were to go back to the play today, just I don't know. There are things about it that I don't think I would write again, which makes rewriting it really hard.
So how
So
how have your, if at all, how have your feelings changed in arranged marriage?
um
Are your parents still setting you up?
oh yeah. you know, I was telling you I was out in Chino Hills yesterday at visiting some family friends, and they were so sweet. And the uncle talked to me a long time about how marriage is a great institution, and that I should be open to it. And I was like, I totally agree, uncle. It's great. You know, if you know any nice men, you know how to get in touch with my parents, and they will process the applications and send me the finalists, which is how they do it. Um, it's really funny. It's really, my parents are awesome and they're great, and our agreement is just kind of, uh, they know me really well. They will only ask me to meet people that they think I would actually like. Um, so can't really. I mean, you can't really thumb your nose at that. That's pretty sweet, you know. So, but I don't know. I don't know, Brian. How am I supposed to get married?
That's a good.
That's what this podcast is about, right?
It is. It's about, and actually behind that door, we have three bachelors.
Three eligible young professionals.
Your mother found me on Twitter.
Do you follow my mom on Twitter?
I don't follow your mom on Twitter.
Please follow my mom on
What's
Twitter.
her Twitter handle?
AMAS32.
AMAS32.
32. That's her Instagram handle as well. She's very active on Instagram and Twitter. She's a social media maven.
Wow.
Over 12,000 followers.
Wow. Get so many followers.
She talks to everybody, and she's a brilliant writer. And she discovered all of this after my brother and I left home. And she got on Twitter because my brother and I were on Twitter, and she be on Twitter as well because we were on Twitter. And then we're like, oh, Mom, that's so cute. And of course, in a year, like, she had way more followers than we did. And now she's kind of a social media darling. It's great.
That's kind of amazing.
Yes.
And so are you.
Definitely not as much as my mom. I like social media. I try to make my day job living off of it, but yeah.
Right, and social media is how you and
How
I
we
met.
met.
And if
Yes.
you and I didn't meet, I wouldn't have told you to go to grad school, and you wouldn't have gone to grad school.
This is where we find out that you are the key to everything good in my life.
I am responsible
Yes.
for all of your success.
That's great.
That's why I brought you here.
That's great.
To make this this public declaration that I accept all responsibility
Yay!
for your success.
I'm happily giving you the credit.
Speaking of success, something that we talked sort of offhanded about, I believe, a few weeks ago when we ran into each other, was about success. You know, we are all of us playwrights. We have friends who are playwrights, and we have relationships with playwrights. I am married to a playwright, and we're all kind of going after the same things, and we're all hoping to get productions and win awards and whatnot. How do you I guess, I don't know how to phrase this. How do you handle finding success when your friends might not be in the same time?
How
do you talk about being successful? How do you celebrate your own self without coming across as a braggart?
Okay, so let me tell you something that this was a long conversation I had in my head over the weekend, where I wanted to say I wanted to like tweet about some good news that I got, and I just realized the way I genuinely felt, if I actually put it out there, it would be the most obnoxious humble brag ever to be humble bragged. And I was like, I can't do that, but I genuinely feel this way. Um, it's I don't know, dude. It's because we had that great conversation about it, and it's it's so weird when you're suddenly getting opportunities that your friends might not be getting, and it feels weird because you know your friends deserve them as much as you do, and you want everybody to succeed at the same rate, which is kind of impossible, and that's not how it works. And everybody's going to go through like these, highs and lows, and everybody's going to be doing well at some point. Everybody's going to go through fallow patches at some point. Um, but it's like the way what I really want to do is like every time I get an opportunity, I want to like y- leverage that for my friends. I want to leverage that to do things so that we can do things together. So, like the web series that I'm making with my friends Megan Kelly and Seamus Sullivan, that's really like I wanted the fundraising for that. It was like, okay, I know that I can be like the point person for fundraising because I have these amazing contacts now and these amazing people who know my work and have already supported me, so I can use that to make this project that we're doing together and make it a reality. So I feel like that's the important thing. It's like um, when you look at like this is so interesting when you look at like Hollywood and you look at especially in TV. I feel like when you look at actors who are like succeeding, you tend to notice that they all kind of came up together. Like they were all friends back in the day and they all kind of rise up at the same time. I think that's how it works. I mean, I think because if you are a talented artist, you tend to be friends with talented artists. Like those are the people you naturally gravitate to and collaborate with. So if one person gets opportunities, it helps the other people get noticed as well and get like get opportunities as well. And so we kind of rise up together, which I think is the dream scenario. Is to just because you know, I Megan and I talk all the time about like our wonderful futures together. And how we're going to do great things. And we're so lucky to have Seamus on board for this. So I feel like we make such a great team, and we make such a great team. We collaborate so well together. Working on this web series has been, like when it's our core team, it feels so great because the chemistry works and we have similar senses of humor, and as production partners we really have each other's back. So I think it's just a matter of continuing to like do whatever you can to make the most of it.
So
Yeah,
you like to use your own opportunities, all your achievements to help raise up the people around you, right?
that sounds pretty arrogant.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
you sound extremely arrogant. That's what,
That's I would here's the thing though. I would absolutely hope and expect that my friends would do the same thing for me.
right,
Right? That's
right.
what you want them to do.
Absolutely.
I mean, like that's the thing. It's like when Megan becomes a showrunner, I want her to hire me. That's our agreement. It's like that's what I expect from all of my friends. It's like, okay, when you get something big and you can help me out, you better help me out because that's how we work together. And and we will want to do that because we want to continue working together. We want to bring more people in. So yeah.
Do you believe in karma?
I was raised Hindu. I am still Hindu, I guess. I don't necessarily believe in karma in the way, in a kind of a natural law or anything, but it's just so obvious, right? It's just like if you are nice to people and you make friends with people you want to be friends with and you help each other out, things are gonna be okay. You know, that's my philosophy.
How talk about your personal foul patches, as you called them. So somebody like me, for example, I'll look at you and I feel like I'm extremely jealous of you because we came through the same grad school program and I was a year behind you and I have watched you take off and I have had that expectation of myself and it hasn't worked out that way yet. So I look at you and I see your name pop up here and there, and you're getting all these things, and I'm like simultaneously so happy and shaking my fist at the sky like Madre. And but I know that you aren't getting everything in the world. Like you are still struggling like everybody else. Like So talk about that. I'm curious. Even the person, I've recently had this realization, which is I think we all know this, that we are all struggling. All writers are
Mhm.
always struggling, and
Mhm.
no matter how much you achieve, and there's always something that you're yearning for.
Of course, yeah.
And I had this realization when the Pulitzer Prize got announced
Yes, I liked your Facebook post about
recently,
that.
and uh, I said that right now there are people who are very upset that they did not win the Pulitzer Prize, and I was trying to be cheeky, but at the same time, it was sort of like an honest
Mhm.
realization that I just want to have a play produced,
Yeah.
right? And then I'm going to get a bunch, and then
Yeah.
that's not going to like, and then I'm going to be like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I want a play produced in New York, and then
Mhm.
I'll get a play produced in New York, and then
Mhm.
I'm going to be like, well, is Charles Isherwood not
Mhm.
giving me a Critics' Choice in the New York Times? And then he does, and then there's another thing, and then another thing, and I haven't won a Nobel Prize yet. Why haven't I not?
Why aren't you a physicist, Brian?
Right,
What's wrong with you?
exactly. So there's always another thing, and we're always struggling. So I guess it's a long way of asking you, the person I admire, and I'm following. How do you deal with the tough moments?
Well, you read the blog post I wrote, right? About I put it up FPI blog about when I went to India. I was in India for 3 months, and half of that time I was actually incredibly depressed. And it was one of those. It was a weird thing, because everybody goes through sad days. I think everybody has sad days, but this was an interesting thing, and it was really. I felt really bad because I was with my family, and my family's so wonderful, and this is like an opportunity. How many people get an opportunity to go back home and stay with their family who they love a lot for 3 months? That's crazy. But the thing that actually kind of triggered me being really sad for 6 weeks was bad reviews for A Nice Indian Boy. And that's like so, like, how weird is that, right? Like, be like, I got bad reviews, which implies, for one thing, that means you get reviews, right? You get freaking reviews. That means you got produced, and you got produced on a scale where you get you get you get reviews from like the Chicago, gosh, I'm not, now I'm gonna name the wrong
The
newspaper.
Chicago
Not
Sun-Times,
the Chicago Sun-Times, actually the other one, the
the
Tribune.
Tribune.
Um, and they weren't necessarily bad reviews. Even it was just like, it was a kind of a thing where um, they were similar. They were kind of similar reviews to what A Nice Indian Boy got in its LA production. Um, and I think it was just a feeling of um, I just felt like, okay, in Love and Warcraft, like this amazing stroke of luck is getting multiple productions. That's amazing and that's awesome. It's also a play that has nothing to do with India or Indian themes or my culture or heritage or where I grew up at all. I'm not even a gamer. It is extremely personal in very specific ways. But A Nice Indian Boy is about my family, so it's a lot more personal to me. And I just went into this weird thing thinking, okay, I've had this initial burst of great fortune, um, but I think my future is going to be, I grew up in India. I'm going to be writing about these themes. I'm going to be writing about these characters. And if mainstream American critics, or bigger regional theaters don't see the value or room for these stories, then what is my future going to be? Like, that was the kind of the thought process that I just went down.
And this made you feel depressed.
Yeah, and I was also, because I was back home. It was a huge change of, it was just I was home. I don't know how to drive in India. Most of my friends in Chennai don't live in Chennai anymore. It was very hot. All of these things, and also just like the constant anxiety of day jobs is just something in my head all the time. The constant anxiety of the fact that I am able to get by, but I don't have savings of my own. Like, I'm not, I don't, I'm not, I've never been in a, ever since I gave up my full-time job, I've not been in a position where I can actually save money. I'm living month to month, and that's terrifying to me. So, and of course, like that, I was, it just like all these questions of, how will I sustain this? How will I make sure? Because that's the anxiety that happens, right? Once you get success, once you get opportunities, then the real anxiety of like, oh my God, how do I make sure I don't squander this opportunity? How do I sustain it? How do I grow? How do I build? How do I not fuck this up for myself? Like that overtakes you, and because absolutely you feel like once I get this thing, I'll be fine. But it's never like that. But at the same time, um, part of the reason feeling sad sucks so much is because your brain is also telling you, admonishing you the whole time, how dare you feel sad? You are ridiculously privileged. You are ridiculously fortunate. You have every fucking thing in the world that you could possibly want and ask for. So stop feeling depressed, you piece of shit. Like, which just makes you feel worse.
And so that doesn't work. It doesn't work to berate yourself like that.
Apparently does not work. By the way, I didn't ask if we could swear on this, but we can bleep it out, right?
Well, you swore.
I swore.
You broke the seal.
I broke it. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
So you're in India and you're feeling these feelings and you're going through this anxiety and the struggle. How do you get through it?
Time. Time passed and then I was fine. So, yeah, time passed and I was fine. And I haven't been sad at all since I got back to LA, which is awesome. I mean, do
you get sad often?
So that's the other thing, and that's the thing I wrote about on the blog thing too. It's like when you're feeling okay, you forget that you could ever feel sad, and when you feel sad, you forget that you could ever feel okay. And I feel like that's kind of common to people. Like I think that's a pretty relatable experience. So I
How does sadness manifest for you? Like how do you contrast the happy Madhuri with the sad?
it's all in my head, right? It's like if I'm sad, there's a cloud. There's a real cloud and there's a real weight, and everything feels awful. And if I don't have that cloud, it's amazing because I can just move through the day and do things. And anxiety is not something that is leaden; it's something that's propelling me forward. Um, and it's something I think about, but I can talk about it and I can laugh about it, and I can use it as fuel to do things. Like, okay, if you're worried about that particular thing, then do that particular task and like work on it. Whereas if I'm sad about it, then I'm just like I don't want to do it because it's pointless and I hate it. And
when you're sad, so you just talked about being sad in India. Is the way you are sad in India different than the way you are sad here?
No, it's the same. It's the same, but and that's the other thing. It's like people talk about how it's weird being sad in LA because it's always so beautiful outside, and if it's a beautiful day, and all you want to do is stay in bed, then you really feel like you're wasting this glorious opportunity you have to live in like one of the most beautiful places in the world and experience this incredible weather, and go out and do something interesting, right? Whereas in India it was incredibly hot and I didn't know how to drive and I didn't particularly want to go out and see anything anyway, so I felt okay. That was a different experience of it. Yeah.
Do you feel so you were born
I was born in San Jose, here, and then we moved to Singapore when I was 6 years old, and then we moved to Chennai, India, when I was 9. So I grew up in India.
So you grew up in India?
Yeah.
That's how you describe yourself.
Yeah.
And you've been living in the United States
since 2008.
Since 2008.
Yeah.
Do you feel caught between these two lands, or do you feel like you can easily slide back into life in India, and then when you spend so much time there and you come back here,
I feel like it's one of those things. I'm vastly more comfortable here. I'm vastly happier here. But that might only be because I left India when I was 21 years old or 20 years old even. So everything that I've understood as an adult human being trying to figure my way out in life has been outside of India, has been here mostly in LA. So LA is my real LA is what LA definitely feels like home in a very different way from how India feels like home. India is childhood. India is my family. India is like it's memories. It is an integral part of who I am as a human being and the way I see the world. But LA is the home I've made for myself. So that's kind of how I see it. When I was back in India, a huge question that my parents and I often think about is, will I ever move back? And I do think I will at some point, only because my family continues to live there. But not until I'm at a level professionally where I feel comfortable going to India and making a huge transition. Because it's, if I were to go back to India sooner, then I feel like I'd be losing the momentum I'm building up here. And I would have to start all over again, which I'm too lazy to do that. Yeah.
Do you feel any sort of obligation to be the Indian playwright? You mentioned
I'm
that
happy to.
in Love and
Yeah.
Warcraft is not, and
Yeah.
like, did you feel that kind of pressure that maybe this character should be Indian? And
No, I mean, not at all, actually. So it's. I wrote in Love and Warcraft and I wrote A Nice Indian Boy around the same time. And um, because A Nice Indian Boy was about like this hot topic issue of gay marriage at the time, I felt like somehow I felt prouder of that play. Whereas in Love and Warcraft was about these like extreme secrets within inside me that I rarely talk to people about, and then I wrote about it, disguising it in the form of a gamer girl. Um, and I wrote in Love and Warcraft because I was just fascinated by undergrad culture in the U.S. I was fascinated coming to USC and observing all these young people, and these people who I'd only like known of through American pop culture my whole life. I came here and I was like, wow, they're really like that. That's amazing. And so then I wrote a play about them, and that really came from that absolutely came from my upbringing as well, because I grew up in a country where sexual mores and values and attitudes are so different from what they are here. Expectations are so different. So that's kind of where the genesis of In Love and Warcraft came from. Um, never occurred to me that it would be. Never occurred to me to make the character Indian. However, um, one thing that I'm so excited about with this play is that different productions are like different theater companies who are doing this are really going out of the way and really making a wonderful effort to cast actors of color in this play, which is so important because it's set in Southern California and it needs to reflect the diversity of Southern California. And the DC production had Anu Yadav playing the role of Evie, and Anu is amazing, and she's so brilliant, and she's an Indian actress, and it just, and of course it was very exciting to see an Indian actress play a role where race is not specified or central to her character at all. Um, it just looked and felt and worked so well. So I'm excited about that. I happily embrace being an Indian playwright. I know that a lot of South Asian artists struggle with that because you don't want to be pigeonholed. You don't want to be put into a category of like Mike Liu writes so well about this in his blog about being expected to write Asian stories even though he's third generation Asian American. In like he's as American as anybody else. Like the expectation that you would have to write a Chinese story or whichever country your ancestors came from is silly and should not be done. But I grew up in India. I am Indian. I am American as well, but I am Indian, and I am happy to be that voice. I am happy to embrace that label. I want to write a lot more Indian stories. I have lots of ideas for them. I want to write a lot of Indian history plays, which I haven't started yet. I haven't written a draft yet, but that's stuff I want to do and I can do. And because I understand the American audience and I understand American theater, and I write for American sensibilities, I can be that playwright. So yes.
What if a non-Indian, and just it's tangent, Can we talk about Indian versus South Asian? Because I
Okay,
feel like
sure.
I'm extremely ignorant, and I feel like
South Asian is
I don't want to say
South.
Indian because I feel like I'm going to upset.
No,
And you're sort of like my guide.
okay, so South Asian is just basically the subcontinent. So it's India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka. Uh, I'm sure I'm forgetting a country. So we're both at fault here. Um, and of course, and India is the country of India, and so like the term Desi usually refers to people from the subcontinent, not necessarily just from India, because Indians and Pakistanis and Sri Lankans have a lot more in common than differences, I think. But at the same time, India is such a ridiculously diverse place, so, like that most Americans simply are not aware of. Um, that I feel I would have a lot more in common with somebody maybe from Sri Lanka than somebody from Punjab, which, even though Sri Lanka is a different country and Punjab is in the same, is within India. So it's, that those are the distinctions. But South Asian is a good term to use when talking about the brown people.
I have in in my writing I have felt insecure about writing characters and stories that take place outside the United
Mhm.
States.
Mhm.
Um, and I want to talk about that
Mhm.
with you. Let's say I write an Indian history play,
Uh huh.
and I've never even been to India.
Uh huh.
How would you feel about that?
I'd feel a little like, oh, Brian, what are you doing?
Okay, why is that?
um.
Because I'm gonna do that tomorrow. No.
um. Again, because I grew up in India and I am constantly finding myself inadequate when it comes to writing about India. I'm constantly finding such new intricate complexities about the Indian experience and its incredible diversity every day, um, that like I feel completely out of my depth, and I'm much closer to that than you would be for obvious reasons, and that's why, um, there are such concerns about people appropriating characters and cultures without completely understanding the context behind them. Um, so those are the concerns. Of course, anybody can do anything they want. They would just have to do a lot of research. And to me, it would be like, why do you want to do so much research? Just write another play. um, because they're just, again, like, another reason a nice Indian boy might be very different is just stuff I've learned about privilege, actually, in my own context of my privilege, um, within, like, as an Indian person, like the various privileges I enjoy inside India, as a woman of my particular caste, class, region, language, education level, all of those things, and how that impacts how I impact the world, how the world impacts me very differently from how it does other people. These are just things I'm learning about, and I'm still struggling with, and I'm grappling. And I wrote A Nice Indian Boy when I was much younger and very ignorant of a lot of things, which is fine. I know that there will be feminist and progressive academics from India who might look at the play one day and deem it extremely problematic, but that's okay because that's how young I was when I wrote it. But it's just stuff like that. It's like the world is so complex, and
But
yeah,
let's say I'm inspired.
uh huh,
Like I'm inspired to write a thing.
yeah.
And why can't I write a play?
You absolutely can. It's just that's the thing. It's just like there's just so much more research for you to do. There's just so much more work for you to do, for you to, like, completely. And if you want to do a good job, right, for you to really represent the situation that you want to write about, for you to understand the nuances of these characters, things that you might not know at a first glance, power dynamics that might be at play, historical context, like all these things, um, that you would have to like really, really dig into and understand and immerse yourself in before you started to write the play.
So if I came
Yeah.
to you with this as my advisor,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say advise me, and you would basically try to talk me out of it.
I would warn you. I would say I hear all the things that will crop up that people will say about your play. Here's the pushback you might get, and if you are ready to take that on, then go forth and do it. Um, like I'm still kind of sad. Rajiv Joseph. My God, Rajiv Gandhi. Dear God, Rajiv Joseph beat me to the punch with a Taj Mahal play. Because I've been wanting to write that for a long time. It would be very different, I know. So I
Right,
could
his
still
play
write
is
it.
called
Guards
Guards of
Guards
the
of the
Taj.
Taj.
But the Taj Mahal is so there can only be one play.
No, well,
Right.
maybe right with American theater, we have our Taj Mahal play. It's been done by one of the greatest
Right.
living contemporary playwrights. So yeah, pass.
Yeah, that's sadly true, isn't it? For this building that has existed for
Yeah, many hundreds of years.
right.
Have you been to India?
I have not been to India.
You should go.
This is something I didn't know if we would talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
I knew we would talk about this in just our friendship eventually. I didn't know if it would come up here, but I have travel problems.
Really?
Yeah, I have a lot of like weird, quirky habits, and I'm very persnickety about.
Hey, you're a vegetarian. You're gonna be fine when you go to
Right,
India.
right, but here's the thing: I can't eat. This is so embarrassing to admit a thing that's going to be broadcast to 9 people. Uh, so people who know me know that I can't eat food that is in the open,
That is in the open. What does open mean?
like a buffet.
Oh.
Right. I can't. I have a weird. I have a weird thing. I have a weird thing about food on the street. Yeah. I have a lot of problems. So traveling is a challenge
I see.
for me. I am so. Speaking of talking about privilege, this is like this is the voice of privilege right here. I'm a white, straight American male who cannot go through a day without taking a shower.
Uh-huh.
I can't. And I'm not. I'm not saying if you go to India you can take a shower. I'm just saying in general, like in my life, this is the
Yes.
type of thing that this is my struggle.
Oh.
I have weird eating and cleanliness, and I get anxiety
Uh-huh.
because I'm just afraid and I'm ignorant. And
I want to take you to India and write a play about it.
yeah. Well, that kind of speaks to part of my questioning about writing another culture, because I've written a couple plays that feel very much outside my culture, and I find myself, how do I write? And one of them takes place in India, and I started to write a play about me if I was a business traveler coming to India on business and striking up a relationship with hiring a tour guide to just sort of like take me around and make sure I didn't get hit by a car and knew how to get from A to B all the time, and the relationship that develops between the two over time. And I ended up writing it from the perspective of the Indian man, and it ended up being a solo show. So now I'm not even in it as a living character, and I feel very, very insecure about that. But it is me exploring me traveling to India.
I don't think you should feel insecure about that at all. I just think it's a matter of, I mean, if you've really thought about it, if you've done your research, if you've talked to a lot of people and you share it with people who can give you feedback and kind of vouch for it a little bit, I wrote a nice Indian boy even though I'm not a gay Indian man. And that was very, I know I was like dipping my toe into a culture that I probably didn't have any right to write about.
Did you feel that at the time?
I absolutely felt that way. I was very concerned. And I tried my best to be very careful about it. So I tried to talk to as many people as possible. The world premiere was directed by Snehal Desai at East West Players, and I was just so happy when he was, he came on board, because it was like I really kind of need a guide. I need somebody who can vouch for the authenticity of this, who can let me know if I'm doing something stupid and wrong. So I don't know. I think it's that process, but it's like I don't think I don't know. It is touchy. This is why it's touchy, right? Like, why can I, as an Indian person, write a play about undergrads in the U.S. even though I didn't grow up here and I didn't go to undergrad here? Why is that okay for me to do it, but why do I automatically feel a sense of foreboding when you want to write a play about an Indian character? Well, that's just like, hundreds of years of literature and colonial dynamics and imperialism and all of those things, and whose stories actually get told and whose voices actually get heard and all of that, right? So it's complicated, but that I don't think that should stop people from writing what they're fascinated about or what they want to write about. Um, I hope that doesn't stop me at some point. I have, like I want to write. A friend of mine told me, like, he had done all this research about Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was the founder of Pakistan. And Jinnah has a fascinating life story that most people don't know about. I would love to write that play, but wow, am I really, really far away from his lived experience as a Muslim man in the 1930s and 40s. It's so I don't want that to stop me, but I know that that's going to be a project that's much further off into the distance because it would just require so much work and research. Um, and then if and when it happens, then I would have to answer questions about, like, what right do I have to write the story. So I don't know. I don't think I actually had a point with my ramblings just now. Yeah.
Let's ramble on to some plugs because you have a play opening in a couple months and you're working on a web series right now. So
Yes.
plug these things for us.
Plug my things. Okay. I am co-producing and have co-written a web series called Titus and Dronicus. Um, Titus, those are two separate names. Um, I have written it with Megan Kelly and Seamus Sullivan, who are two awesome playwrights here in LA. And Megan and I went to USC together, and we were classmates. Um, and we have a really amazing team. We finished our Kickstarter. Um, so Titus Andronicus is basically about these two private detectives who live and work in LA, and they solve murders and mysteries inspired by the classic stories of Shakespeare. So season 1 is Hamlet, and Titus Andronicus get involved in this. They try and figure out what's going on with Hamlet. Episode 1 is basically Ophelia as the dame in a noir mystery novel, asking these guys to help her out. So I'm very excited about it. It's going to be really, really funny. It is my first venture into filmmaking and learning an incredible amount, learning a lot about producing. So, hopefully it goes well, but I'm very proud and very excited about that. You can look for Better Than Shakespeare on Facebook. That's the name of our production company. You can look for Better Than Shakespeare or Titus and Dronicus on YouTube to find our trailer. You can go to titusanddronicus.wordpress.com, which is the fake website we've set up for Titus Andronicus investigations. So all of those things are there, but probably the best thing to do is follow Better Than Shakespeare on Facebook, and we'll give you updates. In Love and Warcraft is going to have an LA production in September, and it's going to be produced by Artists at Play, who are just amazing, and I'm so excited that this is going to be their production this year. They're a wonderful, very talented group of people who are committed to showcasing the works of Asian playwrights or plays with Asian themes in LA. And I think that's amazing. In fact, there's going to be like a fundraiser / announcement on Sunday. So look for Artists at Play on Facebook. Follow them. If you're not on Facebook, I really don't have anything to say to you, so I'm sorry about that. And the other really cool thing that I'm very excited about, which is the awesome news that I got last week, is that I'm going to be part of the Victory Gardens Ignition Festival in Chicago with my new play that I'm rewriting at the moment, and I'm so excited about that. The play is called Queen, and it's about two scientists who are working on the problem of colony collapse disorder, which is why the bees are disappearing around the world. And really, really excited about that. I'm so thrilled. So if you're Oh gosh, is this podcast going to be heard in Chicago?
Does Chicago have the internet?
I don't know. Does Chicago have the internet?
We'll find out.
Does it have ears and apps and phones? Yeah, so that's happening. So those are the really awesome things that are happening right now that I'm very excited about.
I'm very excited. I'm very happy for
Yay.
you.
Thank you, Brian.
And I look forward to you taking me to India one day.
Dude, no, seriously, you should come. Come in the winter months, and Chennai is the best place in the world in the winter. Like this beautiful arts and music festival happens every year, and you can stay in my house, and we'll cook for you, and you won't have to eat anything that's out in the open.
So humiliating.
It's not. No, it's fine. You might. I mean, who knows? Like India will challenge a lot of things. It just challenges you at every turn. So maybe it'll be fun for you. Maybe you will have an Eat, Pray, Love experience and come out of it a totally changed man.
Let's end this on Eat, Pray, Love.
Eat, Pray, Love.
Be sure to follow Madhuri on Twitter @MadPlays, and be on the lookout for her web series Titus Andronicus, which looks like it'll be pretty hilarious. And her play In Love and Warcraft can be seen in Los Angeles in September, produced by Artists at Play. Special thanks to Bill Bordy, whose generosity has allowed LA Stage Alliance to launch At This Stage magazine, which is live online now at thestage.la. Huge thank you to Danny Oliver, who is the reason I'm sitting here right now, and thank you to Anna Urina, who is the brains behind the controls, making sure this recording sounds amazing. Keep in touch with the Subtext by following on Twitter @SubtextPodcast. The email address is thesubtextpodcast@gmail.com. That's all. See you next month.